Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Play Resident Evil Remake, or I guess Resident Evil 2002, whichever you prefer to use, really. In the last part, we continued exploring through the mansion and got ourselves the armor key, which we're quickly using here in the U-shaped room on the second floor, East Wing in specific, to open those two doors and go through this one in order to get ourselves onto our next main event.
You.
Chris Redfield, Alpha Team. We're here to rescue you. Richard, what the hell happened to you? Chris, this place... Get your team out of here. Demons everywhere.
Don't talk. He seems to have been bitten by a poisonous snake, but the size of the bite mark is huge.
It's not just any ordinary snake. Take my word for it.
He needs serum. I left it in another room.
I'll go get it.
Please hurry.
Hold on. I'll be back.
So in order to save Richard, we need to head back to the save room from last time on the first floor of the West Wing and grab an item and get back to him in time. I forget the exact timer you have. I think it's only a couple minutes. I'll see if I can find anything concrete on that by the time I get to the second editing pass. But you really just gotta gun it. Also, I don't do it nearly as regularly as I did back in, like, Resident Evil 0 or even Code Veronica, I believe. I do still speed up some segments here and again if it's a backtrack to a place we were literally just at. Since this is also on a time limit, I figured, yeah, it's probably one of the best times to do so. Now, if you watched the previous LP on Wario Land 2, you'll know I actually noted there was a specific point in this LP where I wasn't sure if I wanted to re-record something because it required playing through a lot of the game again to get an alternate scene. It's actually tied to this. If you fail at this, you get a different set of scenes down the line at about the 3/4 point in the game compared to what we're going to get in this LP. And I'm still not sure if I'll maybe make a bonus video out of that or something, or maybe come back to it whenever I eventually revisit these games again. Because just to mention, by the way, there's the serum we're looking for. I do want to, at some point, come back to both the PlayStation Resident Evil and this to do the opposite campaign, so I've done both for both versions. So I do the Chris campaign for the PS1 game and the Jill campaign for this. I could theoretically do it then as, like, playing Chris again as a practice run for the Jill run, but I'll figure that out when I eventually get closer to doing that in several years' time. At this point, though, I finally decided to grab the blue gemstone for the statue we broke earlier in the LP, as while we could already access the room we could use it in as of late last part. With that said, I'm just grabbing it now. I actually don't use it as soon as I could because there's other things I want to get done. This is just to help avoid some back and forth. With that said, in either character's campaign, there's very few scenarios where you reach this whole thing without having access to the room where the serum is, so thankfully you're never really out of luck.
Hope this is what you wanted.
Thank you. I'm gonna give you a shot now, Richard. Hang in there.
Here. Take it. It's a radio. Take care of yourself. Rebecca. Richard.
He's okay. He's just unconscious.
Rebecca, it's not safe here. Let's get Richard to a safer place.
Right. Richard's doing well, Chris. He should recover soon.
Good. Richard needs you now.
As soon as Richard gets better, we'll come after you.
Rebecca, you okay with a gun?
Yes.
All right. I'm going to continue my investigation.
Be careful. Okay?
So, new to Remake is that if you actually get the serum to Richard in time, he actually survives the poisoning. In the PlayStation 1 version, that didn't happen. That also moves Rebecca over here to this safe room for Chris for a good while, and there's actually a nice little bonus for that in his campaign.
This room is equipped with all sorts of medical supplies. I could pretty much treat any wound. Want me to treat your wounds?
That bonus effectively being a 100% heal from her.
Yeah, would you? Thanks.
Somebody sure knows how to get a deal. Most of the medical supplies here are from Umbrella.
Umbrella?
Don't you know? They're only the biggest taxpayers around here. They make most of these medicines right here, homegrown in Raccoon City. But there's not much left, so take care of yourself.
Due to that dialogue, though, I'm not sure if the amount of heals she gives you are limited. She always has enough for how I tend to play the game, but maybe that only works a couple of times, and I just always happen to be within that limit as it is. So at this point, I'm actually going to re-enter the save room immediately, which notably doesn't trigger Rebecca's dialogue because I'm at full health, I believe. I'm storing the blue gemstone and grabbing the broken shotgun, because I want to use that for its purpose as soon as I can to have its reward for as long as I can. But if you wanted to use the blue gemstone, like I said, you could actually do that right now. Effectively, in the room that's at the other end of the hallway we were just in, directly across, effectively, from the itchy, tasty zombie room, there's another door in that hallway that leads to where you use the blue gemstone. And I can recommend doing that. I'm just saving it for later. You can actually save it for even longer than I do because there's another item we need to use in that room eventually anyway, but not a big deal. So in order to use the broken shotgun, we want to leave the west wing and head back towards the east wing. In specific, we want to head towards where the bathroom was that the zombie was in earlier. If you don't mind being a little more roundabout, I could recommend heading to the eastern staircase room where the other save room is, via the second floor to get over to this hallway, because that would allow you to access our destination without having to worry as much about these zombies that have spawned in now that we have the armor key. Well, my goal is this door right here. You could have accessed this on our first trip even, but I don't really recommend doing that, for pretty good reasons. This room might seem weird. Trust me, there's a reason. So, coming up here in this room, there's not only a defensive dagger, as well as some ink ribbons in the case you need some for saves, but in the far distance, there is a shotgun mounted on the wall. This is one you can actually use as a weapon. However, the moment you grab it, that lever rises. If you try to go back into the previous room without having the broken shotgun or the main shotgun on that, the ceiling crushes you, thus being an insta-kill. I think if you grab the shotgun and start the ceiling collapsing, you can still flee back into that room to place it, but I would recommend just avoiding it in general unless you're playing as Jill, where if you play the game in a certain order, you can actually get rescued by one of the other S.T.A.R.S members if you enter that door at a certain point, but that's if you're playing as Jill. Get away from me. Yes, by the way, in case you're noticing, even if I don't really have a reason to, I still blow up every single flash grenade I use on a zombie just because, for one thing, sound design-wise, it's satisfying, but also, if I use the flash grenade, I might as well actually use it, you know? Keep in mind, this door right here that has the Spencer family emblem carved into the doorknob for later, that's a much later game goal. And obviously, we just got followed into that room by one of the zombies from the previous hallway, which, a little annoying given that's a pretty tight corridor, but there's ways around it. So now we're in the painting puzzle room. If you remember this puzzle from the original game, throw any knowledge you have of it out because they've changed how this works. And for the best indicator of that, let's check the painting at the end of the hall first. Lisa, protected by the three spirits. A picture of a woman wearing a bracelet, a necklace, and a crown. There's a switch at the bottom of the picture. Press it. Do not press it yet. So her crown is green, her necklace is purple, and her bracelet's either a red or orange, depending on which part of it you're looking at. It's more of an orange, I suppose, overall. We want to make it so that the stained glass windows otherwise present in the room match the colors on her before pressing that button. Otherwise, the crows that are perched above us will start attacking and you have to leave and re-enter. Not only do I think this is a more visually interesting puzzle than the Steps of Life puzzle that was present in this room in the original game, but I think it's one of the best indicators for just how wildly they've changed Remake's level design and ideas compared to the original game, even outside of the new rooms and paths we've already seen thus far in the LP. And it's really why I really do love Resident Evil Remake on the whole. Like I believe I mentioned back in part 1, I think Capcom does some of the best remakes in the industry. For making them feel like separate games that fulfill the same context within their franchise's lore, if that makes sense. Once all the colors are matching, press the button, and this entire section of the wall will rise, leading to a little fenced-in area just outside the main hall through that door up the middle of the staircase. If you have an old key, you can actually open up that gate right there. I think you might even be able to do it and skip the puzzle, potentially. But more importantly, the first of the 4 death masks we need for the tomb is over here. 1 down, 3 to go, and they're still plastered all over the mansion. And if we investigate this, by the way, this is distinctly the mask without a mouth, and if you investigate the front, you do get that distinctified. With that, though, my next goal is the Eastern Staircase save room, because I want to store that thing away and grab some other items. For right now, let's talk about the shotgun. The shotgun, like all other weapons in the game, the way their damage works is actually the further away you are from an enemy, the lower damage you do, but the shotgun has the highest fall off, I believe. With that said, it also has the widest attack cone, to the point where I've killed enemies around corners with it if I aim properly, and it gets really funny. But they also have a higher critical hit rate. Namely, if you aim upwards with a shotgun with a zombie right in front of you, you're not guaranteed a headshot with that like you were in the original version, but it's pretty damn likely. If not, it'll at least do so much damage that it's likely to kill things as it is. Chunky. Notably, there's now a note over here, though. I left some bullets in the room on the right. I'll go ahead and look for a way out. Wesker. Notably, I believe if you're playing Jill's campaign, that note is from Barry. Because outside of all the other character differences, like stats, inventory, and all that, notably, each campaign contains a secondary character exclusive to it. Rebecca is here in Chris's campaign. Barry takes her role, though, in Jill's campaign. Both campaigns are sort of canon due to this, though, because they both make it out of this scenario alive for later games. It's just that they kind of can only see one at a time. Be kind of interesting if they ever do another remake of Resident Evil 1 for some reason in the future. If they kind of just do a campaign that combines the two in some form. You just swap between the playable characters, maybe. Not that I think 1 needs another remake, because I think in terms of the classic Resident Evil formula, this is such a perfect evolution for what the original game was while giving it its own identity still that we don't really need another one unless you really just dislike classic Resident Evil's playability and formula. And at that point, hey, guess what? There's all sorts of other games in the series for you as it is. Also, I forget if I said this in like part 1 or so, but eventually I do start jump cutting past my inventory management and just showcasing the final results of it. Because the way I usually use the item box in these games is I tend to organize it as it is. I usually have like the healing items in the bottom, attack items in the top, puzzle items in the middle, and just kind of go from there. And reorganizing that the way I like to every time I use it, that can sometimes take enough time. We're like, yeah, let's skip past a little bit of that. For right now, though, I've stored the shotgun because while it's powerful, I'd rather still use my handgun for the moment because I want to get a stockpile of shotgun shells up. And I've just brought 2 keys with me because I want to get things done in those directions. In specific, here in this U-shaped hallway over near where we first met Richard, I now want to enter the other door I unlocked with the armor key. I could have waited until now to do it to begin with, or even have done it before going to see Richard, but I wanted the inventory space open first. So in the original game, this room had a puzzle, and it still does here, but the puzzle, again, has been completely changed from what it was, albeit the punishment is actually still the same. Though notably, this puzzle does have some hinting issues from what I remember hearing. There's something that's depression, but the gate's in the way and you can't reach it. Our reward's right there, but we can't access it until we get all 4 of the knight statues back into the slots they started in when we entered the room. But sliding them back in is not quite the entire solution, as there's a little bit of an extra caveat to this. Woe to those who disturb my sleep. There's a switch here. Press it. Don't unless you have them all in. Otherwise, poison gas leaks into the room and damages you / kills you. So the thing is, you can slide any of the 4 statues in. They'll click into place, but some of them, when you press them in, will actually slide other ones back out. Or at least more accurately, swaps their state in or out. So you can press one in and another one will get pressed in as well in some cases. The issue with hinting is, I believe the pictures in the background are supposed to hint towards the order of operations here. But either the solution was changed later in development or something because it doesn't quite feel right. But as it is here in the actual released version, you just kind of have to trial and error until you get it, which doesn't take that long as you're patient and notice what swaps what elsewhere. I believe there's actually a solution to this you could do in like 3 moves, but I've never memorized that as... Since I don't revisit this game as often as some other ones in the series to begin with, it's just not really worth my attention span or memory for that compared to, say, Resident Evil 1 Original or Resident Evil 2. I'd say out of all the puzzles they changed for Remake, this is the closest thing we have to a dud. But at the same time, I appreciate it still being different because if they had just kept most of the puzzles the same and it was just largely a visual overhaul with some new rooms here and again, veteran players would have just coasted through the game on prior knowledge in a way that would have made it very unremarkable, barring the occasional other new, fresh moment. The overall changes do make this a radically refreshing experience if you're even just used to playing the original or the original's arrange mode. With all 4 back in place, we press the button and we can now grab the mysterious box behind the crate. This is the jewelry box, which is in itself a minor puzzle. There's a design of the sun and the moon. On the plate it says, "Sunshine will awaken me." So we need to press the icon shaped like heart halves that are on the sun on the top of the jewelry box. And doing so opens it up, containing our second of the 4 death masks. This one, notably, I believe, is the one that lacks everything. So 2 down, 2 to go. And if you can't tell, the death masks are effectively the replacement for the crests from the original Resident Evil. As most of the locations where they were in Resident Evil 1 on PlayStation, there is now a death mask in their place. So in that regard, you can still coast on prior structural knowledge from the original game in that regard, but you can't super rely on it still. So our next destination is actually to go get rid of the sword key by using its last use up. And if you're familiar with the original, the door that we have to use it on now, I don't think you could open it all until much later in the game. We want to head back towards where Jerry is, but walk past him in the hallway where he killed Kenneth. In the meanwhile, let's talk about something I mentioned last time. Last time we encountered Forrest as a zombie, and I mentioned he had an exclusive stat set because he has an exclusive difficulty tied to him. And that is true, but it's more like a bonus mode than a true difficulty, because all the other difficulties unlock by beating prior difficulties. To unlock the thing that Forrest is featured in, called One Dangerous Zombie, you need to either beat the game as both characters on normal or above on the modern releases, or on the GameCube you need to beat both campaigns once, and then once again on the, New Game Plus mode. Effectively in that mode, Forrest himself replaces any zombie in the given rooms he can spawn in, which I believe are set rooms. He moves faster, and you'll hear the rattling of his armaments. That's notable because if he incurs any damage whatsoever, be it from a single knife stab, from a gunshot, or even a self-defense weapon, he explodes. Exploding the entire mansion, causing a game over. So it becomes a true game of avoidance. It can be a bit of a pain in the ass, albeit not as much as the other difficulties I'll talk about, probably next part, but yeah, it can be rough. I still like it a lot, though, because genuinely, I think the amount of difficulty modes that Resident Evil Remake has, even though some of them are a pain in the ass, really do add a layer of replayability that the other classic Resident Evils sometimes lack, barring like battle modes or other scenarios if you play things in different orders and all that. Ironically, though, despite being called One Dangerous Zombie, I do think One Dangerous Zombie is one of the easier of the bonus modes in the game, because since he's only in set rooms, he's technically easier to get around than some of the other stuff in the higher difficulties. With that said, you definitely have to be on the lookout. But with that, I'm going to need to end this off here. Thank you guys for watching, and in part 4, we're going to go explore the kitchen really quick. See you guys then.